Hi, this is Chris Montague. Welcome to Guitar Mania, and I'm really looking forward to playing in Austria tonight at Porgy and Bess.
Chris, welcome to Vienna. You made it eventually to the Porgy and Bess, and we've been looking forward to you guys playing here. So,
thank you.
And you've got a new album.
Yeah, it's called Ornithophobia, and it's a new album that Troyka have put out, and it's on Name Records.
It's a new record company.
Yeah, new label for us. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but they've been really great helping us put together the tour, and you know, the artwork and all this kind of thing. It's been great. It's been really fun.
What about the title? Can you tell us a bit about the title of the new album?
Yeah, it's well, a while ago I wrote a tune called Ornithophobia, and it stems from like an actual genuine phobia that I have of birds, which is it's pretty crippling at times. I mean, even just this morning in the airport at Bern, there was a little tiny bird ended up in the airport, and I really didn't like it. You know, I had to leave the airport. It comes from a really awful childhood experience I had, where I dug up a dead seagull on a beach, and ever since then I've sort of had this like mortal fear of birds. It's really embarrassing, it's terrible, you know. But we thought it would be fun to make a whole album based on sort of bird-based themes, and we just sort of ran away with the narrative and the idea of it a little bit. Yeah,
and it's slightly reminiscent of course, of Charlie Parker's tune named on it.
Right, yeah, people have picked up on that before, but it wasn't actually a conscious thing. But I suppose, you know, we get classed as jazz and things, so I can see why people make that connection, you know, the ornithology thing and all that kind of thing.
How long did it take you to write the album and to record the album?
The recording was quite a long time. We did it very different to previous albums. In the past, we've gone into the studio and, you know, done a real kind of typical jazz thing where you record really intensely for 2 days and then that's the album. You know, whether you like it or not, that's your album. But we had the luxury of recording for a much longer period of time, and we didn't really feel the pressure to document how we do things live so much, so they weren't live takes per se. We just layered things a lot more and used a lot more overdubs and a lot of the kind of background sounds. You know, I spent a long time making guitar atmospheres and overlaying and overdubbing a lot of things.
Right. In terms of what equipment did you use for recording your guitar sounds?
Well, I use this guitar, which I've had for a long time now. It's starting to wear out a little bit now. I've had it refretted a few times, but it still sounds. You know, I still like it. It still sounds good. I'm not a really big gear head. I just like to plug in and play whatever's there. And I'm a firm believer that whatever gear you have to learn how to use it really well. And you know, there's no such thing as a box that you buy that you're going to plug into and sound great. If you haven't worked on your hands sounding good and making your hands work for you, then it won't come out of you. And it's a really standard. Well, it was a standard US Strat, I think 94 something like that. But I put a brass nut on that and some new pickups. And what else did I do for it? I blocked off the trem at the back because I don't like the trem just puts them out of tune. I got it signed by Nile Rodgers as well, which I was very grateful for.
Did you play it, the guitar?
No, it was just at a festival we played last year at Love Supreme in the summer, and I got to meet him, which was nice because he's a hero of mine. And then from there we go into. I've started using this at the minute, the full drive, which is nice. I was using a Hughes and Kettner for a while just for an overdrive sound, but. That sort of thing, and then it gets a little bit more full on if you want it to be. Just for a bit more of a distorted sort of sound, and then occasionally I've started using this thing, the Bit Commander, it's got a really good sub sound. I think probably the best sub octave sound I've ever heard. But I never use it for that in this band, which is Troyka. We're on tour at the moment, so I only use it for the occasional thing, and it's got the octave up sound, which is quite nice for that Hendrixy sound with a bit more punch than an octave thing. That kind of thing, you know. But it's just, sometimes I use that, not very often. And then my favourite pedal at the moment is this one, which I got recently. and that's the Electro Harmonics Super Ego. And I love it for all the kind of textural things. It's like a freeze pedal, but then it goes into a sort of a synth sound. Actually, it's a bit lower. And you can set, you know, how much it sort of decays by, and you can have a really long decay or it can have a really quick attack on it. But it's I like that bit when it sort of blends into itself. It's very nice. And I've had these Line 6 pedals for a long time, and I'm sort of slowly trying to replace the blue one because I don't really use it for much other than like a tremolo thing occasionally. And then this ring mod sort of sound. Which is fun. So if you know, for kind of more rhythmical improv things with kit on the keyboard. And then I use a delay pedal, this Line 6 thing, which has been an old faithful for quite a while. And I've got like a sort of a shorter delay sound on it for fairies. Just for sort of clean sound things and just filling out the sound a little bit. Then a longer sounding delay, which is for filling out textures and things. And that's about it. Then the only other thing I would use this for is making little loops with to make little backgrounds and atmospheres with, in conjunction with the Super Ego. It's a really nice sort of thing to do, you know. But that's it. Very simple, really.
The equipment that you brought with you for the tour, is that also what you'd use in the studio?
Pretty much, apart from the amps. Obviously I don't know what amp I'm going to get from venue to venue. It's usually a twin, which is not my favourite amp. They're two sort of scooped in the middle. But you know, I don't really mind. I'm quite used to just dialing in a different sound for each night and making it work. It's quite fun to sometimes work with gear that isn't ideal. As an improviser, you know, if you play improvised music, you have to get used to improvising things. But generally, the pedals that I used for this tour are the same as what I used to record the album with. And most albums I've been on for a while now. Mm-hmm. But when we record, I always record amps in stereo. So I always get two slightly different sounding amps. I've got a really big old Music Man, like a 1973 Music Man 4x10 thing. It's really huge. It's so heavy, but it's great. I love that. And then sometimes I use an Egnator Rebel head to record on the other side, and you know, pan them left and right. It just sounds nicer in your cans when you record. It took me a long time to figure out how to get a nice guitar sound in the studio. And the stereo amp thing really works. Okay, so basically you're laying down two like a stereo track with right guitar, left guitar, and that's basically it. And then you're doing some overdubs. Yeah, and then always with a room mic as well. So you know, two condenser mics and two 57s on each cab, and then a room mic further back that you can mix in to get a slightly bigger, warmer sound. How many tracks did you have for on the? Oh, guitar tracks. Well, guitar tracks and then overall tracks. God, I don't know. I mean, it was hundreds. Really good. Because I spent a little bit of time building like a little studio in my flat, and so I had the luxury of recording a load of things. And so basically, what you sort of the stuff that you recorded at home, or some of it also ended up in the album. Then. Yeah. Yeah. You know, we'd record live these tunes that we've been working on for a few years, because we're always putting in new tunes live, and then eventually we work them up and arrange them to recording standard, and then we document them with a recording, and then for this album we then went and put other overdubs in and little things just to fill it out. So basically, by the time you hit the tour again, the road again, everything's set, and the songs, the structure, the compositions, they're all fully worked out. To an extent. I mean, we keep things loose because we all improvise, you know, so sometimes it's much more on cue. You know, there's certain sections that we will always play the same, but how long they last or where we go to afterwards is a different thing each night, hopefully, you know, to try and stay true to the improvisation element in the band.
In terms of improvisation, I mean, obviously you have an academic background. Can you please talk a bit about that and about your formation years and what you think are the skills then that an improviser needs to be an accomplished improviser then?
I mean, I started out when I was about 9 or 10, and I heard Jimi Hendrix, and I think it was Voodoo Child, and I said to my dad, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. So he got me a guitar, and I started learning just by ear. And I think that was the thing that makes a good improviser, is having good oral skills, good, picking things up by ear. And that's all I did. I used to just listen to records and learn off those. And then I was very lucky to find a good guitar teacher who became a bit of a mentor for me, a guy called Jimmy Savage, who still teaches in Newcastle. And he was really great. He would get me to come and play along with him, just sitting with his band, when I was still a kid, really. But that was brilliant for me. And then I got a bit more serious about it when I was about 15 or 16. I started listening to more jazz music and, specifically improvised music, and started listening to a load of those kinds of guitar players.
Who would you say is your biggest influence from that period?
Bill Frisell. Bill Frisell, John Schofield, that sort of school of thought. Jim Hall, those kinds of players I really liked, and still do. I still really, you think of those as the best example of that.
So basically, you also sat down and transcribed whole solos of.
Yeah, I would do that, and also that I really liked the music that they wrote. So for me, it was just as important to transcribe the tunes that they played, so that I could then go to a band and we could play those tunes as well. And that taught me a lot about composition. How a melody should look when it's written down. What a good chord progression to solo on should look like.
Yeah, I mean, and in terms of academic background, what were the things that pushed you really forward and where you made really progress as a musician? What were the most important things that you were studying?
I took lessons with a really good teacher called Jez Franks for a while, and he was really brutally honest with me about what my playing sounded like. If it sounded shit, he told me it sounded shit, and it was great. It was perfect for what I needed, But it didn't really ever feel academic, because it was just, most of the time I was just playing with the students and trying to write music and get better. But there was a couple of things that really helped to open up the fretboard for me, practicing in closed position, learning drop two voicings properly, and just practicing with a metronome properly to try and get a better time feel. And these are still things that I practice, every day. Just my practice routine's been the same for about 15 or 20 years.
What do you practice? So how would your typical practice routine look like?
Well, be a cup of coffee there. And most of the time now I'm learning new music for people's bands that I'm playing in. So usually I get sent music in the post or via email, and then I've got some gigs or a tour or a recording coming up, and I'll just sit through and mark up parts properly, and just sit and sort of noodle through those. If there's any strange chords, I'll sit and just play the scale that relates to that chord, and and have like dry runs at improvising over it, and record myself a lot of the time. I always record when I practice, just on a phone. I think that's a really useful thing to be able to do, just to hear back, critically examine what you do, and does it sound good against the metronome? Do your lines have a good shape to them? And have you got a nice tone when you play? Just, very simple things. I don't really practice very complicated things.
How's the current tour going so far? You told me that you will be playing approximately 40 shows as part of
I think so,
this
yeah.
leg.
Last time I checked, for the Troyka tour that we've got, it's about between 35 and 40 dates, I think. I haven't checked exactly. It's on the website, troyka.co.uk.
London, I understand, is a very competitive place for musicians. Has always been, presumably. How do you see the music scene in the UK at the moment?
I think it's always been tough to be a professional musician. I don't think it's ever been easy. I don't think it's specifically more tough now than it's ever been. I think we have certain tools that help us now to manage things easier and reach an audience. The internet is such an amazing tool, as everyone knows. Everyone uses it. But London's a really great place. I wouldn't say it's necessarily competitive between musicians. It's really sort of healthy, and in my experience, everybody really supports each other and goes to each other's gigs, and helps to promote them, and you know, I love it. I've got so many really close friends from that world, and I mean, in London, it's not unusual that you would do a really straight ahead kind of standards bebop gig with one set of people, then the next night you'd be playing some sort of free avant-garde thing, and then the next night you'd be doing a rock gig, or it's very sort of eclectic, and I think that bleeds into the music scene. It's such a huge capital city, there's a lot of different music influences there. It's tough to keep an audience all the time, because there's a lot of venues, a lot of competition. You know, there's so many gigs on in London all the time, so to get an audience you have to really work hard. The rest of the UK gets tough once you get outside of London and you start touring around. There's pockets which are great for especially jazz music. I'm thinking like Birmingham, Leeds. You know, these sorts of places they're really great. But you know, if you have a good album out and you have a good healthy amount of PR and you know you're switched on with trying to promote yourself, then yeah, you can make it work. Of course you can. But it's always exciting for me to come and play in Europe, to play new venues like this one tonight. I've never played here. So I'm looking forward to that. And generally in Europe, the festivals are a bit bigger for this kind of music. The audiences are definitely a bit bigger for this kind of music on the whole.
If you were to give one piece of advice to young aspiring musicians, what would that be?
Oh God, that's a tough one. I mean, you know, I'd say write your own music. Get in the habit of doing your own thing. Be unique. You know, be completely unique. Try not to copy people. And grow a thick skin, because you will definitely need it.
Your 5 favorite all-time albums?
Oh my God, that's another really hard one. I'd have to say...
I'll make it 3 so that...
Okay, I am Electric Ladyland, Jimi Hendrix, Science Friction, Tim Byrne, and then what might my last album be? That's really hard. You've stumped me on that one.
Sorry about that, Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, or is there anyone that you like at the moment? Contemporary musicians that you particularly like, where you say, this is up and coming, and this is something.
I really like. There's a French guitar player called Montague who I really like. He writes a lot of really interesting music, and yeah, any of his bands are really worth checking out. He's amazing.
Chris, thank you so much.
No problem, thank you.
Looking forward to the concert tonight, and all the best for the remainder of the tour. And yeah, thanks so much.
Very much.
Cheers.
Cheers, Richard. Okay. Thanks, guys. Yeah.